Welcome back to Take Action News. The FBI investigation deepens into Republican Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann. Yes, you'll recall that Michelle Bachmann announced this past week she will not be running for re-election. But we've also learned a couple of weeks ago that the FBI was investigating some irregularities involving the financing of her presidential campaign. Well, here at Take Action News, investigation sources familiar with the investigation tell us that Michelle Bachmann's former chief of staff, Andy Parrish, has now given sworn testimony to the FBI, declaring that Michelle Bachmann knew of and approved of secret payments to Iowa State Senator Kent Sorensen. The Republican Sorensen was being solicited apparently for help with the Bachmann campaign. If these allegations are true, you could make the case that Michelle Bachmann's campaign was essentially trying to bribe Republican state senator to get his help, to get his endorsement before the Iowa caucuses in the 2012 Republican presidential contest. Michelle Bachmann is also facing allegations that some money from a leadership PAC was being paid to presidential campaign staff. That would be a violation of Federal Election Commission guidelines. She has already been fined by the FEC for some irregularities involving her House races. But nonetheless, the big news into Take Action News today is that the FBI investigation is deepening and that there are allegations that have been made by Michelle Bachmann's former chief of staff that she knew of and approved of secret payments to an Iowa Republican state senator before the Iowa caucuses. Michelle Bachmann, her office, she has claimed that she did nothing wrong, that she knows of no criminal violations, but nonetheless, this investigation is deepening, and perhaps this explains why Michelle Bachmann announced over the past week that she would not be running for re-election. Perhaps it's because she needs to concentrate all of her efforts on preparing a legal defense. We are not yet at the stage where Michelle Bachmann would be notified that she's a target of the investigation or a subject in the investigation. Things are very early, but again, we can confirm that that Andy Parrish, the Minnesota Republican's former chief of staff, provided sworn testimony with some serious allegations against Michelle Bachmann to the FBI this past week, and that there are two other staff members who have been in touch with the FBI. And oh, by the way, when we're talking about government witnesses against Michelle Bachmann, it's not just her former chief of staff, but it's her former Iowa field coordinator, Peter Waldron, who has also filed complaints against her with the Federal Elections Commission. Serious stuff against Michelle Bachmann. Now, Daniel Mehrens, you want to comment on any of this?
Well, David, I'm just sort of delighted to be working with you on this because I know how experienced you are, and I find it very exciting that you were able to get this information exclusively for Take Action News, that her former chief of staff, Andy Parrish, and that the Iowa regional director, Peter Waldron, have now cooperated with the feds in an investigation of wire and mail fraud allegations. And I'm wondering, as someone who's covered this before, what you can tell us about the signs that we should look for next for people that are following this story. Are there any indicators, any telltale giveaways if she becomes a target of the investigation or not?
Well, under Justice Department guidelines, a political figure who becomes a target of investigation is usually notified, or their attorney is notified that, hey, you have become a target. It means we've entered a new serious phase of the investigation, and it's time for you to lawyer up and get ready, either for negotiations with investigators or prosecutors or whatnot. I think we're still several months away from that. But the key thing to keep in mind is that the feds, the Justice Department, tends to have a very difficult time bringing wire fraud and mail fraud cases unless there is somebody credible on the inside who is providing them information. And in this particular case, between Andy Parrish, Michelle Bachmann's former chief of staff, and Peter Waldron, who served as her Iowa field coordinator, both of them have become government witnesses, and both presumably would have huge amounts of information to provide to the FBI. And the key with wire fraud and mail fraud, for example, would be, did Michelle Bachmann sign false documents? And that her campaign disclosure reports, did she sign them knowing that they were wrong or knowing that money was being paid to somebody to help either bribe or whatnot? If she signed documents saying one thing that turned out not to be true and then put them in the mail, that is a violation of the U.S. criminal code. So there are all sorts of different ways that she could get tripped up criminally by this, simply by the documents that she would have had to sign by being at the top of a presidential campaign.